In less than 2 weeks, Dad of Boy will be back. The 2018 installment was an award-winning masterpiece, a game that took home numerous Game of the Year honors, and most importantly sparked life back into a franchise that some had believed its best days were behind. Kratos and Atreus' journey into the Norse realm was a major win for developer Sony Santa Monica. Millions of players experienced brutal and engaging gameplay, compelling storytelling, stunning visuals, and innovative design. Now we await the follow-up experience, and while Sony Santa Monica only recently has started sharing a lot about the many different aspects of the sequel, there is still a lot unknown, and that of course is on purpose. More specifically, it seems of all the gameplay footage and cinematic trailers released, they all come from just the first few hours, and within this video, I'll be avoiding any of the major spoilers circling around online, but taking a deep dive into everything that you need to know before you hand over your hard-earned cash for one of the biggest game releases of the year. Coming in at a whopping 90 gigabytes in size, God of War Ragnarok is double the size of its predecessor, although that size is not necessarily reflective of the amount of content in the game, but of the visual fidelity and performance options that Sony Santa Monica has built for Ragnarok. The game features 4 different graphic modes on the PlayStation 5, the first of 2 being your typical better resolution or performance options, one targeting 4K at a locked 30 frames per second and the other aims for 60 frames per second. What's new though is 2 high frame rate options only available if you have an HDMI 2.1 TV. This allows players the choice of 4K graphics at 40 frames per second or an even higher performance option that aims for 120 frames per second. Yes, you heard that right. Based on reviewers' experiences thus far, it appears many who have been testing the 120 frames per second option are averaging around 90 to 100 frames per second, and for those planning to play on your PlayStation 4 console, reviewers have indicated that the game performs similar to the 2018 installment, with the game targeting around 30 FPS. As to the actual content of Ragnarok and how that contributes to the PlayStation 5 size, it still is a pretty big upgrade over the 2018 installment, with reports indicating that there is about 40 hours of gameplay. This includes the 20 or so hours it takes to get through the main story, with reportedly there being about 3.5 hours worth of cinematics and 16.5 hours of gameplay. On top of that, there is another 20 hours dedicated towards side activities and endgame content, with 19 hours dedicated to gameplay and an additional 1 hour of cinematics. For the many completionists out there to fully discover everything in the game and earn the Platinum Trophy, some reviewers have already indicated it could actually take closer to about 100 hours. So the single player action adventure is indeed massive in many respects. But next, let's jump into the actual narrative of God of War Ragnarok and where things were left off in the last game and what's officially been said. The big finale of the Norse chapter, Fimbulwinter, is well underway. Kratos and Atreus must journey to each of the 9 realms in search of answers as Asgardian forces prepare for a prophesized battle that will end the world. Along the way, they will explore stunning mythical landscapes and face fearsome enemies in the form of Norse gods and monsters. The threat of Ragnarok grows ever closer. Kratos and Atreus must choose between their own safety and the safety of the realms. That is the official description of the sequel, and based on the lore that was established in the last game, we know that the Jotun seeress Groa gained enough power to see a vision of the events of Ragnarok, a vision that was so powerful that it got the attention of Odin, who killed her after she refused to share the knowledge that she had learned. Groa saw the beginning of Fimbulwinter, a 3-year-long winter following Baldur's death. Skull and Hati, the sons of Fenrir, will devour the sun and moon, marking the start of Ragnarok. The fire giant Surtur will emerge from Muspelheim, burning Asgard to the ground with his flaming sword, but will be killed by Thor and Odin. The war between the Aesir and Vanir gods will continue. Fenrir will break free from his chains and battle with Odin. Both will die. Jormungandr and Thor will fight. The god of thunder will strike the world serpent so hard that the world tree splinters and sends the serpent back in time before his birth. A white ghost from another land and his young son, Kratos and Atreus, will be at the center of everything. Even with that understanding of the prophecy, much remains unknown with how Ragnarok's prophesized battles will play out, and the last game certainly established quite a few mysteries that we should get answers for. From the various murals that hint at different pantheons, to the big question of who blew the horn, which could be an indication of time travel playing a factor in this game's story, to the revelation that assisting the light elves over the dark elves in the last game may have been a mistake, to the importance of Atreus being Loki, the Norse god of mischief, to the lifeless bodies that fill up Jotunheim, to the Jotunheim murals, which at the very least tease Kratos' potential death, to Faye's mysterious role, which director Cory Barlog has described as that of a dungeon master. Kratos and Atreus' relationship as father and son has changed since the last time we were with the pair. Kratos has trained Atreus during Fimbulwinter, knowing of what's to come. Being the wise elder that Kratos now is, he takes a very safe approach, which draws the ire of his growing son who wants to get out and explore, discovering answers he has for the many mysteries of the world and of his true identity. Despite these differing perspectives, the pair are motivated with attempting to prevent the collapse of the Norse realms as they search for Tyr, the Norse god of war, who was believed to be dead. Obviously he is not, but how he factors into Ragnarok and whether or not he joins Kratos and Atreus' side remains a mystery. However, we do know that Tyr was being held prisoner by his father Odin. Prior to the events of the last game, we know Tyr appeared to be one of the few benevolent gods. In many ways, the Norse god of war is a walking contradiction, as instead of creating violence, he works to establish peace, something seen through murals with his interactions with other pantheons, and also conversations that we have with Mimir, our trusty bodiless companion who is back by our side once again in Ragnarok. We learn thanks to Mimir that Tyr attempted to broker peace with the giants, but unfortunately that plan fell apart due to Odin's perfidy. In turn, Odin was expelled from Jotunheim, Tyr was imprisoned as he was viewed as a threat to Odin's power, rumors were spread around that Tyr was dead, and in anger, Odin allowed Thor to massacre all of the giants that resided in Midgard. So based on this sordid history, one would definitely expect for Tyr to assist Kratos and Atreus in their mission of stopping Ragnarok and fighting the Aesir gods, who have brought chaos and destruction to the Norse realms. While the Allfather Odin will appear and has already been shown in some of the game's marketing, seemingly visiting Kratos' cabin to talk him out of further bloodshed, the main antagonists of this sequel are the god of thunder Thor and the Vanir goddess Freya, both of which having established motivation for why they want to see Kratos and Atreus' downfall, as they were responsible for the deaths of Freya's son Balder and Thor's sons Magni and Modi. Freya, the former queen of the Valkyries at the end of the last game, was searching for her Valkyrie wings, which Odin had previously stripped and hid away. The true queen of the Valkyries, Freya, is going to attempt to unleash her wrath upon Kratos and Atreus, revenge for what they did to Balder. Sony Santa Monica has further noted that we wanted to remind players that Freya isn't just a terrifyingly powerful user of Vanir magic, but also that she's a formidable warrior in her own right. Enraged by Kratos' evasion of justice by her hand, Freya will turn every weapon at her disposal towards her son's killer. As Mimir remarked in the last game, the cycle of vengeance is not broken so easily, and it seems whether Kratos likes it or not, conflict is coming no matter what. An example of that appears to be a showdown that happens very early on between Thor and Kratos, being compared to the battle that happened in the early hours of the first game between Balder and Kratos. As the PlayStation blog noted a few days ago in their preview for the first few hours of the game, Thor unleashes a combo of grabs, lightning-infused Mjolnir blasts, area of effect volleys, and more. The two gods grapple and fly through the air as the battle rages across multiple frozen landscapes. Thor's assault is non-stop, peppering and cutting insults against Kratos' parenting skills when he's not outright attacking. Beyond our clashes with the gods, Sony Santa Monica has many new and returning enemies for us to face. This includes the most common enemy type, Draugrs, reanimated corpses that haunt battlefields. Some have magical abilities and others hold different weapons and equipment such as shields. The Light Elves face off against Kratos and Atreus, taking a more warrior approach this time around. Hellwalkers also return, warriors, souls that are unable to rest and enter the afterlife. A new human warrior enemy are Berserkers. Stalkers are centaur-like creatures with antlers that is armed with a bow and arrow. The Dreki is a giant crocodile-like creature from Svartalheim that snaps with its massive maw, swipes with its scaly tail, and dishes out electrical attacks that force players to keep moving. Grims is a bipedal toad-like monster with a cursed variant that spits toxic bile. The Einherjar are warriors who have died and gone to Valhalla and fight at Odin's command. They can unleash fierce attacks that deal Bifrost damage to Kratos. The Flame Phantom is a creature made of fire and rock in Muspelheim Valheim, it bears a rune that acts as a weak spot. Nightmares are floating eyeball-like monsters that can launch projectiles, and corrupted Valkyries once again return, as these Valkyries are spirits but corrupted into their physical form by Odin. Other notable enemies include raiders, both melee and ranged variants, and a mighty bear called Bjorn, which serves as one of the initial boss fights. Now, with the weapons we'll be utilizing to take down these foes, the Leviathan Axe and Blades of Chaos return, with new combat options for players to toy around with. Kratos has an expanded range of elemental attacks. Using the Leviathan Axe and pressing the triangle button, you can apply a Frost Awaken effect to your next melee or ranged attack. Pressing R1 during Frost Awaken executes Frozen Breach, a wide swing, and applies frost to nearby enemies. Aiming while pressing R1 during Frost Awaken executes Frozen Spike, a quick throw of the Leviathan Axe that creates a frost explosion on impact. Similar to the Leviathan Axe Frost Awaken, you can mash the triangle button with the Blades of Chaos equipped to perform a Flame Whiplash. This charges Kratos' chains with fire, great for melting enemies' icy defenses. This is just a few examples of the many combat options at our disposal with these iconic weapons, and Kratos won't be limited to attacking with those weapons, as he also can use his fists in unarmed combat and can perform multiple hit combos. Kratos can now actually take a sprinting leap off a cliff and slam into enemies below, unleashing a brutal attack with his fists. The grappling hook additionally adds a new layer of verticality with traversing the many environments we'll encounter, but also we can utilize the grapple to our advantage or disadvantage during combat. The last game featured a great deal of customization, but our shield was largely exempt from that. But that has changed in Ragnarok, as our shield will come with many new options. Game director Eric Williams previously revealing that there will be a variety of different shields, which will have differing defensive abilities to play around with. It said that in the early hours of the game, Brock will have us pick from 2 new shields to start with: the Stonewall shield, specializing in soaking up attacks and striking back, and the Dauntless shield, which is all about high risk, high reward parries. Furthermore, on combat, Sony Santa Monica has said that as a team, we're working hard to take our learnings from the last game and improve upon combat to feel fresh yet familiar. With God of War Ragnarok, one of our main goals was to push player choice in combat, whether it's through hard-hitting combos, a mastery of elements, or clever defensive tactics. You will find plenty of opportunity to fight alongside our duo in a new way that feels uniquely expressive. So while Kratos' arsenal has been enhanced, and maybe it'll be enhanced further if we get our hands on Mjolnir at some point, Atreus has also seen some enhancements, but some of that just comes with him growing up. In the last game, Atreus would climb on our back and his exposure to battle was somewhat limited, although here he engages more often and can even be seen hitting his own combos against enemies, moving around quicker and without his dad's assistance. Atreus' primary weapon of a magical bow and arrow also has seen an upgrade, as he now has the ability to summon spectral animals to perform attacks and assist Kratos in combat. Another new ability that Atreus receives in the sequel is the Sonic Arrow, which can blast objects apart, helping us solve puzzles and/or leading to hidden chests or new areas. With these new weapons and gadgets, we also have new locations to explore, as all 9 realms will be explorable this go around, although Odin has the realms cut off at the beginning of God of War Ragnarok, with Kratos unable to use the Bifrost to travel. Fortunately, Brock and Sindri have reconfigured the Mystic Gateways as an alternative means of travel. In the last game, Vanaheim, Asgard, and Svartalfheim were the realms that we were barred from visiting. Vanaheim is home to the Vanir gods and described as a realm with lushful gardens, abundant fields, and memories of their ugly, brutal war with the Aesir gods. Asgard is the fortified home of the Aesir gods, which too is very likely beautiful, but with a history of wars and battles. Svartalfheim is the home of the dwarves, full of large trees, mountains, small islands, and spouting geysers. The realm also showcases the dwarves' distinct architecture and feats of engineering with the cities, harbors, mines, and other structures that they've built. Now, in regards to the realms that we explored in the last game, such as Midgard, Alfheim, Niflheim, Muspelheim, Helheim, and Jotunheim, it has been revealed that some of these realms will have notable differences when we visit this time around. One example of that would be Midgard, which has been overtaken with winter weather. winter. Snow fills the sky, and the Lake of the Nine is now frozen. Ragnarok appears to be bigger and better in every way possible, with reviewers thus far speaking highly of the first few hours. Expansive accessibility options, weapon-specific finishers, the return of the single continuous shot technique, new enchantments, collectibles, armor sets, and so on and so forth. God of War Ragnarok may not be taking a massive leap in visual fidelity, with some bored Twitter users already trying to criticize some designs, but this is still objectively one of the best looking games of the PlayStation 5 era, and I would argue a sequel that enhances everything that matters for this franchise. Obviously, there are big things such as the many combat enhancements in Ragnarok that make different builds possible and encouraged. There's also the story, which appears to be more emotional than ever. We'll battle with the Norse gods, which are less like their MCU counterparts and more like the complicated and often cruel leading figures throughout history. We'll have a showdown with Fenrir, which I personally think won't end up in a battle, but the son of Loki being by the side of Loki. The mystery surrounding the Jötnar's disappearance should become much more clear, especially with the introduction of Angrboda, one of the last remaining giants and who has hidden herself for many years, waiting to fulfill the Jötnar prophecies, one of which involving her relationship with Loki and the birth of their children, Jormungandr, Fenrir, and Hel, all of whom could play pivotal roles during Ragnarok. But there are also these small things, such as giving players an option of 120 frames per second, something unheard of on console when the standard is often maybe a steady 30 FPS. The end of the Norse chapter is nearly upon us, and this is an easy buy based on everything that we've seen thus far on this game and the early impressions that have been shared. As Kratos says in Ragnarok, "Death can have me when it earns me," something that many wonder if it could be coming in this sequel. Anyway, what are your predictions and or expectations for Ragnarok? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.